Welcome to semester 6 BA third year students. I am Dr. C.C. Prasad, retired Assistant Director, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Youth Institute. Today we are going to discuss about urbanization. That is paper urban governance. So in this, today we will discuss about the block 1, which is urbanization and overview. This block is consists of three lesson units. One is the urban concept. Second, the urbanization trends, global, national, and state level. And finally, the constitutional aspects of the urbanization in India. That is the 74th Constitutional Amendment, its features and backdrop. So, in this block, we will discuss the conceptual aspects of urbanization. It means the meaning of urbanization and its characteristics, drivers of urbanization, technology, and also global, national, and state level trends in urbanization. And finally, we will discuss the 74th Constitutional Amendment background as well as its characteristics. So prior to discuss all these aspects, first we have to understand the concept of urbanization. Urban, what is the urban area? Urbanization, urban growth. These are all aspects or conceptual aspects which we will discuss in unit 1, that is the urban concept. You know, any country is having rural areas as well as urban areas, in addition to tribal areas also. But what is an urban area? What is an urbanization? These things we have to understand. First, urbanization is a global phenomenon that we have to understand. That means it is not confined to any country or any particular area. It is a global phenomenon. In every country, you can see urbanization. Whether it is a high level or a low level, you can see urbanization is a global phenomenon. Because over half of the global population which lives in urban areas as per present world records, half of the population, global population, live in urban areas. The United Nations projected that by 2050, about 64% of the people in developing world lives in urban areas. And 86% of people in developed world live in urban areas. That means urbanization is a growing trend or a growing phenomenon. So it is an inevitable thing for any country. So you have to cope up with the urbanization. This urbanization is a result of industrial revolution, if you see historically. So this urbanization it is not a new concept because it is existed through civilizations. For example, if you see the Harappa civilization, Mesopotamian civilization, so the earliest civilizations are urbanized. So that's why urbanization is not a new thing. It is existed through civilizations. There was a transformation of rural culture is being rapidly replaced by urban culture. So there is a transformation of culture, rural culture into the urban culture. So urbanization, what we can call it, is a process. Urbanization is a process. Because it is growth of towns and cities as a result of industrial revolution. Because of industrial revolution, there was a growth of towns and cities that led to urbanization. Another reason for urbanization is migration. The people migrate from rural areas to urban areas for different purposes, and they settle down there. That also leads to urbanization. That means urbanization is two types. One, there is a natural growth in towns and cities, and there is a migration from rural areas to the urban areas for different purposes. So that's why the living can be, why the people migrate from rural areas to urban areas means there are a number of reasons for it. That means for better living, for employment opportunities, for good amenities, and to avoid drought and floods at the rural areas. Because of different reasons, the rural people will migrate to the urban areas, that towns and cities, that leads to the urbanization. That means there is in addition to the natural growth of urban areas, this migration is also adds to the growth of urbanization. Now, what is urban? First, we have to understand what is urban. That means actually there is no universal definition for urban. Even United Nations also not given any specific definition related to urban, because it varies from country to country. Different, it also changes from time to time. That's why when it is a flexible nature, it is go on changing from time to time. It is very difficult to draw a specific definition what is urban. In India, it varies from, as I said, it varies from one country to another country depending on various factors. So in India, how we will recognize an urban area? In India, we will recognize urban area based on census. Because as per census, we will define what is an urban area. Because the census has created certain yardsticks, certain conditions, specifying it is an urban area. That's why in India, the urban areas are defined by the census. So according to the census in India, we can say all places with a municipal corporation, the places which are governed by municipal corporation or municipal council or Nagar Panchayat, cantonment board or notified area or committee, town committees, which are governed, the areas which are governed by these institutions are called urban areas. This is the first, we can say in India, which is urban area, means urban areas are governed by these institutions. What are they? There are municipal corporations, municipalities, and Nagar Panchayat, cantonment board, notified area committee, and town committee. So these committees have governed certain areas. Those areas are called urban areas. This one. Second, the urban area as per census, which have three characteristics, which should have three characteristics. That those are, one, the area should have minimum population of 5,000. It should have minimum population of 5,000. Second, at least 75% of male population should be in non-agriculture areas. So they have to work in non-agriculture areas. That means in a particular area where 75% of male working in non-agriculture areas, that means trade, commerce, business, service sector, so etc. And third, a population density at least 400 per square kilometer. So these three characteristics identify the area as urban area. Once again, I will repeat. First, the area should have minimum 5,000 population. Second, at least 75% of male population should work in non-agriculture areas. And third, that the population density should be at least 400 per square kilometer. So as per census, in India, the urban area is recognized by these characteristics. Those are, one, the area should be governed by municipal authorities, such as municipal corporation, municipality, Nagar Panchayat, cantonment board, notified area committee, or town committee. Second, three characteristics. One, a minimum population of 5,000. At least 75% of male population should work in non-agriculture areas. And third, a population density of at least 400 per square kilometer. In any country, the urban area is recognized by certain components, which are population, land use, density, employment, etc. are broad indicators or components of urban definition. So these urban definition, which varies from country to country based on these characteristics. So now we are clear about what is an urban area. So in urban area means throughout the world, there is no universal definition. It varies from country to country. In India, the urban area is identified by the census. Whatever census says, the characteristics, based on that we will recognize the urban area in India. So now we will, next we have to understand about the urbanization. Now when we are clear about the urban area, then what is urbanization? In simple, urbanization refers to the population shift. In simple, we can say urbanization refers to a population shift. From where? From rural areas to the urban areas. If a population shift from rural settlement to the urban settlement, that is called urbanization. It is the process. That's why it is a process. The people move on from rural areas to the urban areas for different purposes, as I said earlier. So, because of shifting of people from rural areas to the urban areas for different purposes, it led to formation of towns and cities. So, where towns and cities are more in a country, which is more urbanized, where they are less, we can call it as a less urbanized country. So, the towns, cities, which are the symbols of urbanization. So, there is a difference between urbanization and urban growth. Because mostly we will use these terms, this urbanization and urban growth, interchangeably. But it is Not correct. There is a difference between urbanization and urban growth. Urbanization refers to the proportion of population of a country living in urban areas. So how much proportion of people living in the urban areas in a country is called urbanization. That's why it is varies from country to country, depending upon the percentage of urban population different from one country to the other based on the urbanization. Then urban growth, which refers to the absolute number of people living in classified as urban areas. Absolute number of people living in classified as urban areas. That is called urban growth. So that's why we should not confuse between urbanization and urban growth. Both are, though we will use those terms interchangeably, but there exists a difference between urbanization and urban growth. Another, urbanization refers to the continuous increasing number of the people in the towns and cities. As I said earlier, there is a natural growth and migration. Because of both, the population in urban areas will increase. That's why this urbanization refers to the continuous increase of the number of people in urban areas, is also called urbanization. Then there are drivers of urbanization, because the urbanization, what are the root causes for urbanization? So far we have discussed about what is urban area and what is urbanization and how it is different from urban growth. And urbanization is not a new thing, it is a historical perspective. You have to see the urbanization in a historical perspective. Understand? So that's why when urbanization is a global phenomenon, so what are the root causes of urbanization? Why in a country urbanization will take place? Because I said urbanization means there is a shift from rural culture to the urban culture, rural areas to the urban areas. So what are the root causes of urbanization? One, growth of industries in urban areas. Because you can see most of the industries are established in urban areas because the facilities are available there. The industries may not be established in rural areas because the industries require various factors for its growth. So transport system and availability of labor, and fourth, the factors of production, all these things should be available for industry. Those things are available in urban areas. That's why the people start industries in urban areas. So that's why growth of industries is one of the factors for urbanization in any country. This is one. Second, rural areas are inability to absorb growth population because rural areas are very small in physically. So the population, the total population, it cannot absorb because it can't provide employment to the population in rural areas, the people who are living in rural areas. Because agriculture is a seasonal activity. That's why people get seasonal employment. When rural population is increasing, when they are unable to get employment opportunities in the areas where they live, they have to shift to the urban areas in search of employment. So that is another reason. That is, rural areas are inability to absorb growing population is another reason for urbanization. And third, better and increased employment opportunities. As I said, when industries and commerce, service sector, and when it is increasing in urban areas, there is a possibility for broader employment opportunities. So for a better employment opportunities, for increased employment opportunities, the people move on from rural areas to the urban areas. As I said earlier also, that is 75% of people who lives in urban areas works in non-agriculture areas or sectors. And fourth one, there are people not only for employment, they will shift to the urban areas. There are different purposes are there. For different people will think differently to move on to the urban areas. For some people, there is a desire to have better standard of living, because in rural areas, standard of living is very low, because amenities are not available, facilities are not available. They can't live a better life in rural areas. That's why also people move to the urban areas. That is for better standard of living. And another reason is in search of social mobility and future. For better future, for better social interaction, the people move from rural areas to the urban areas. And apart from all these things, better educational and health facilities are available in urban areas when compared to the rural areas. So better hospital facilities, better institutions like premier institutions. But so that's why increasing in educational and health facilities attracts the people towards urban areas. And another important thing is better services. Better services are available. So that's why in simple, what we can say, for a better living, the people move from rural areas to the urban areas. And the people who are in the urban areas, they are expand themselves. Their what we will call it as an urban agglomeration or a suburbs. Understand? So they move on to the surrounding areas of the cities and towns. They develop urban agglomerations or townships and all this because of the better facilities which are available in the urban areas. So migration is the major cause for urban growth than natural increase. But actually the natural increase is, when compared to the migration, natural increase is less. Migration, people migrate from various purposes from different areas to the urban areas. That's why, for example, you can say the construction area or informal sectors, construction, real estate constructions and business that will provide employment opportunity. That's why you can see it from different states. For example, in India, we can say from Bihar, from Chhattisgarh, people are coming and settle down at Hyderabad because their construction activities are going on and employment opportunities are available for the people. That's why when they migrate and live here, as naturally the population will increase, that will create a different type of problems in the urban areas. That is, so in simple, what we can say is when compared to the natural growth, natural increase, migration is one of the major causes for urban growth, particularly in India. Then we have to, after knowing the drivers of urbanization or root causes of urbanization, why urbanization took place in a country, understand? Now we can know the characteristics of the urbanizers. So what are the characteristics? Then first characteristic is the demographic explosion. Demographic explosion. That means leading to the formation of urban agglomerations or townships at the suburb areas, outskirts, and population are moving to suburbs residing. That's why we will also call it as a suburbanization. That's also called, we will call it as a suburbanization. Then urban population growth is much higher than rural growth. When you compare to the growth rate, the urban growth rate is high when compared to the rural growth rate. That is also one of the characteristics of urbanization. Then population mobility. A population mobility from agriculture to non-agriculture area, particularly because of globalization. There is a problem in the agriculture sector. The agro sector was most affected by the globalization. Because of that, the people in the rural areas, they lost their employment opportunities, their earning opportunities. That's why they compelled to move on to the urban areas for income generation. So that's why population mobility from agriculture to non-agriculture occupations. That means the non-agriculture occupations means industrial, commercial, trade, commerce, and service sector, IT. Understand? These are all you can see in urban areas. So that's why the population mobility from agriculture to non-agricultural occupations. That's why 75% of male population in urban areas lives in non-agriculture sector, as I said earlier. This is the reason for that. That means urban population growth is much higher when compared to the rural growth rate. Then developed infrastructural facilities. So there is, as I said earlier, there is a infrastructural facilities are available in urban areas. So that also attracts the people. Then, but when urban population is increasing, either because of natural growth or because of the migration, understand? Whatever reason it may be, when urban population is increasing, simultaneously the urban infrastructure is not developing. That means there exists a gap between urban population and available urban infrastructure. This creates problem in urban areas, and sometimes it leads life in urban areas is miserable for certain sections of the people. So the urban areas are characterized by, simply we can, in nutshell, we can say the urban areas are characterized by high population. That means the density of population is very high, and growth of slums. That is another important characteristics of urbanization. Slums. What is a slum? It is an unhygienic place to live. It's a place unhygienic to live. So the growth of slums, because when population is high, the area is less. There is a pressure on the urban land that leads to the formation of slums in urban areas. That is a growth of slums. That means there is an unhygienic environment exists in the slum areas. That create various other socio-economic, cultural problems in urban areas. And third, poverty and unemployment, which is very high when compared to rural areas. The poverty is very high, unemployment is very high in urban areas. And the next one, lack of proper hygienic conditions. If you visit urban places, it is just like urban slum. Town, we will say we are living in cities and towns, but these are all major slums only. Towns and cities are, when you see, it is a major slums only, because there is a lack of infrastructural facilities, lack of hygienic conditions. That's why various diseases also spread. Contagious diseases will will spread in the areas because of that. That's why spread of contagious diseases and transport hazards. This is another problem or a character, whatever you say, whether it's a problem or a characteristics, you can say it is a transport hazards. That means traffic congestion. It's very difficult to move one place to the other place. Particularly if you take Bangalore and Hyderabad, certain metropolitan cities, if you see, it is very difficult to reach airport or railway station. Sometimes the people will miss the scheduled flight and train because of that traffic congestion. So that's why here the transport hazards are very common feature, in particularly in major cities and towns. Even in small towns also, now it is becoming very difficult because of all these things, because of the higher congestion. That means the population, high population, and because of all these things, these problems are emerging in urban areas. And another thing is housing problem. This housing problem also leads to the formation of the slums. Then lack of services, particularly the amenities, what we can call the shortage of drinking water, sanitization, increase in crime, that is urban crime is increasing day by day. If you open daily paper, you can see a lot of crime reports in the urban areas, which are different in nature. The urban crime is increasing. Why the urban crime is increasing means you can see number of socio-economic factors which are culminating in urban areas to make more crimes in the urban areas. That's why lack of services like drinking water, sanitation, which is a shortage. Because the urban governments is very, very difficult to provide basic services to the people, because you can see resources are limited and demand is more. There is a wide gap between demand and supply. The optimum utilization of the available resources is the major problem in the urban governance. Because every person will demand for water. They will construct house and they will go for water connection. For everybody, the urban government has to provide this drinking water facilities or sanitization and all these things. But the resources are very limited. So the optimum utilization of the available resources in a planned manner to meet the demands. So in simple, what you can say, demands is high and the availability and resources are very limited. There is a resource crunch, what we will call it is a resource crunch. Because of this resource crunch, it is very difficult to get basic amenities in the urban areas. And exploitation is very high. Because if you are constructing a house, there is a labor exploitation. Exploitation is very high because the situation demands like that. and inequalities. You can see a lot of inequalities within the city. You can see, for example, if you take Hyderabad city, you see the Banjara Hills and Jubilee Hills areas, and which are very rich areas when you compare to the other areas, certain low level areas. You can see there is a wide inequalities will exist within the town and cities, within the urban areas. You can see inequalities, economic inequalities and social inequalities. Understand? All these leads to for certain people, it will become a miserable life. Though they live in urban areas, they live in miserable conditions. So that's why it is not a, you can't see only the positive side of the urbanization. There is also a negative side of urbanization. That's why now there is a reverse urbanization is taking place. That means the people moving from urban areas to the rural areas. And particularly, you might have read that they are constructing farmhouses at the outskirts of the urban areas, and they are going and spending weekends at the farmhouses. This is called, what we will call is a reverse urbanization. The people are now preferring to move on to urban area and living some distant places. And for example, some people who are in Hyderabad, they are for purchasing farmhouses in Goa. And weekends, the people are going to the Goa and spending there and coming back to the Hyderabad. So that's like that. What will happen? There is a reverse urbanization is taking place because of lack of amenities. There is a pressure on urban land in urban areas and all these things. That's why there is a reverse trend is going on in most of the cities and towns, not only in India, but globally also. And now you can see, by discussing the various facets of the urbanization, that is the meaning and characteristics and various problems and of the urbanization and all that. That is only one side of the picture. The other side, you can see there are advantages of urbanization. Urbanization is nothing but a civilization. It is a symbol for civilization. When there is more urbanization is there, that means they are more civilized. That's why people say the people who live in urban areas are civilized when compared to the rural areas. That's why urbanization is a symbol, is a sine qua non of what we will call it as a civilization. So all civilizations are, all cities are, all civilizations are emerged in Harappa civilization and Mesopotamian civilization and Egyptian civilization. All these civilizations are emerged first on the bank of the rivers. So that's why civilization. What is a civilization here? What you can understand? The impact of science and technology on the living of the people is what we can call is a civilization. There is a difference between culture and civilization. Culture is a collective activities of the people, their systems, their traditions, their practices, these are all called what we call is a culture. That means every human group is having a culture itself. But every human group is not a civilized group. That means every human group is having a culture, some type of culture it has. That means every human group is having some culture, but all human groups are not civilized groups. The civilization means the impact of science and technology on the lives of the people. Then you can call it as a civilization. So in urban areas, you can see the technological development, technological progress that impact on the lives of the people. So that's why we will call it as a civilized people in urban areas. That's why this where there is a high urbanization in a country means it is more civilized country. This is one advantage. That means that when what is the difference between a developed country and developing country? Just you say the developed country means it has more urban areas, more civilized people, more amenities are available, more technology is utilized. That's why we will call it as a developed country. In a developing country, it is a process, it is a growth. So whatever happened in 1980 in USA, it happened in India in 1990. It took nearly a decade period, a 10 years of period to come the technology to the India. So that's why the urbanization is a symbol for civilization. This is only advantage because it helps for business, trade, commerce. And there are centers of health, education, science and technology, culture. And it provides, as I said earlier, that is better educational and medical services led to the better standard of living. And important thing is growth of service sector. For example, if you take Hyderabad as an example, there is a high-tech city is there. There you can see number of international IT companies are established. It's providing employment for lakhs of people. It is a service sector. So growth of service sector is one of the advantages of urbanization. When there is a high urbanization, the people come forward to establish their companies and it will provide employment opportunities. So that's why this growth of service sector, in not only IT, you can see even in the catering, all these things all comes under service sector. So service sector dominates in the urban economy. In addition to the non-agriculture sector areas, the growing sector in urban economy is the service sector. Particularly if you take online services, some online purchasing, and all these things are service sector is increasing in urban areas. Certain companies like Amazon and Flipkart, these companies are growing because of online business. And another important thing is a boost of tourism. Tourism will be developed in urban areas. There are temple towns like you can say Tirupati and some other temple, Madurai. Like that, you can see some temple towns. There, the tourism is increasing. Tourism is the major source of income for the people who live there. So that's why boost to tourism, urbanization, which boosts the tourism. And in addition to all these things, there is a social development that's called women empowerment and spread of technology. And in urban areas, there is a life expectancy also is high because there is a medical facilities are available. Good medical facilities will be available. So that leads to increase in life expectancy. The healthy life will be possible in urban areas. And social and cultural integration also you can find. Social and a different type of people will migrate from different states and live together. For example, if you take one apartment, within an apartment you can see there are some people from Bihar, some people from Uttar Pradesh, some people from Maharashtra, or some. So within a big apartment, apartment culture. If you see a good community, gated communities are growing in urban areas. If you see in the gated communities, different states, people will purchase houses and live together. And that leads to a social integration and also a cultural integration. They will perform all the functions, irrespective of the state. They come together and they celebrate the functions in gated communities and all these things, because that create a kind of cultural integration, a kind of social integration, which is possible in urban areas. Then you can say that there is increased public awareness. But here I don't accept the increased public awareness, because if you see elections, always the voting rate is less in urban areas when compared to the rural areas. Whether it is a general election, whatever election, if you take, if you are a matured citizen, or if you're a full aware, public aware, if you have got a lot of awareness, you have to participate in the elections, in a democratic elections. But if you see election rating, poll rating, in every election, the urban areas are less when compared to the rural. There may be a number of factors behind it, but what we can say, there is increased public awareness means the people question the governance. In rural areas, the people are very afraid of questioning the authorities because of traditional nature, because of traditional tradition-bound society. The people not such a dynamic to question the authorities. Whatever authorities will say, they will simply nod their head. But in cities, in urban areas, it is not like this. The people start questioning the authorities. Whatever lacunas or loopholes are there, the people start questioning. Why this question? This questioning itself is called awareness. If without awareness, you can't question it. So that's why increased awareness you can see in urban areas. That's why people start questioning the whatever problems they will face. They will ask the authorities to solve the problems. So they will demand the authorities to provide certain services, some basic needs like that. That's why you can see there is a formation of groups, residential groups or like that. These groups will bring pressure on administration to get things done. So these are the advantages you can find because of urbanization. Because as I said, urbanization is a matured level of environment. That means citizens will be matured and they start questioning the governance. And that's why there is a civilized nature you can find in urban areas. But in addition to all these advantages, so far we have discussed, but there are disadvantages also. These disadvantages are very important to know, because there is an enormous pressure on physical space, because you can't extend the place. The urban area means it is the area means it has certain limitation. So you can't expand the land. Urban land is a very scarce resource. You can't expand the land. Land is a natural gift. But when people are pouring on this land, there is a density of population will increases, and it will bring pressure on not only on land, but also on the various facilities, amenities, services. That means because of overcrowding. Because of overcrowding, these problems will be, then sometimes it will think living in cities and towns is miserable than in villages. So this is over enormous pressure on physical space and services and overcrowding. This is one of the disadvantages of urbanization. And housing shortage. There is a shortage of housing. Then you can see, as I said earlier, the poverty, urban poverty is very high. This poverty and slums, which led to increasing of crime. Poverty and slums are, these are the byproduct of urbanization. When there is a high urbanization, means automatically there is a high poverty and growth of slums, and which ultimately lead to increasing of urban crime and ill health diseases related hazards. That means because of unhygienic conditions, these diseases will be spreading in the urban areas. And as I said earlier, that is the traffic congestion, environment pollution. This is another important problem at a global level, or the activists are fighting about the pollution, environmental pollution, because of traffic and because of air pollution and water pollution. And these are all because of high growth of urbanization. Even if you say, even human beings also, they are living, who are living in the urban areas are polluted themselves. That leads to crime, that leads to dubious nature, and all these things are coming because the people are not open. They are not transparent, as we can say. Always they want to go against money. So the money is only the criteria for everything. That leads to crime, land grabbing, and all these things. These are all because of the lack of ethics in the urban areas. Either hook or crook, we have to achieve the object, whether it is ethical or non-ethical. So that is the another important, that leading to increasing crimes. If you see daily paper, you can see there is a crime page. In that page, you can see all the crime activities which are different day by day. You can see different astonishing nature of crimes the people are committing it to urban areas when you commit to the when compared to the rural areas. So like this, we can say the urbanization, in simple, what we will conclude is urbanization is a global phenomenon and it is inevitable evil, you can say. It is inevitable thing. One should accept. I don't know if no person or no country say I don't want urbanization. It's not possible because urbanization is a continuous process. Urbanization is a global phenomenon. So one government has, the governance has to face the problems of the urbanization and try to take steps to resolve it. And always there is a resource crunch between demand and supply. In spite of all these things, urbanization is only the what we can call is only the important feature for growth and development. That's why urbanization, though it has some limitations and disadvantages, but governments should take positive steps and take measures to resolve the problems and increase the resources of urban areas and spreading the urban area into outskirts, like formation of small towns, small and medium towns, and creating certain programs, particularly Jawaharlal Nehru urban renewal mission, like that. You have to take some special programs, particularly recently, if you can see, like a national rural Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Scheme, like that. For urban poor, also there is a central government is planning to introduce a new program for to resolve the problems of the urban poor, to create employment opportunities. So that's why with these words, I will conclude that the urbanization is a inevitable global phenomena, and though it has advantages and disadvantages, the governments should take proper programs and measures to resolve the problems and to make urban life very happy and pleasurable. Thank you.